What if the most grueling 9 months of human existence simply vanished? What if the agonizing process of labor was replaced by a single massive delivery followed by a period of quiet incubation? We are talking about a fundamental evolutionary shift. We are talking about humans laying eggs. Forget the romantic notions of dragons or feathered dinosaurs. We must be coldly scientific. If humans were oviparous, laying massive reptile-like eggs, the biological and societal fallout would rewrite our existence from the skeleton up. This is not just a quirky fantasy. This is a deep dive into the evolutionary trade-offs and architectural nightmares of a new humanity. The shift from viviparity or live birth to oviparity or egg-laying addresses the central flaw in human reproduction, the so-called obstetric dilemma. For millions of years, evolution forced a dangerous compromise upon us. We stood upright, requiring a narrow pelvis for efficient walking. Simultaneously, we evolved massive brains demanding huge heads at birth. The result is a perilous tight squeeze every time a baby is born. We deliver infants prematurely compared to most mammals, simply because their heads cannot get any larger and still pass through the maternal pelvis. Laying an egg sidesteps this entire dilemma. The embryo can be delivered much earlier in development, allowing the massive growth and final neurological wiring to happen safely outside the mother's body. The immediate question then becomes, what must change in our anatomy to facilitate this giant biological switch to become effective egg layers? The female anatomy must undergo radical transformation. The existing pelvis structure, which is designed to hold internal organs and support bipedal walking, is structurally inadequate for delivering a massive, calcified object. We would need a significantly wider pelvic girdle and a specialized, muscular cloaca-like structure that is capable of massive expansion and contraction. The vaginal canal would need to widen dramatically, not just for a moment, but to allow the sustained passage of an object potentially 18 inches in diameter. But anatomy is only half the battle. We must produce the shell. The crucial new organ required is the shell gland, similar to the specialized oviducts found in reptiles or birds. This gland would be responsible for coating the developing embryo in a hard, protective layer of calcium carbonate. This process is complex and fast. Once fertilization occurs, the zygote travels down the oviduct. As it progresses, layers of albumin or egg white are secreted, followed by the yolk sac, and finally the outer membrane and shell. For the human body, this presents an immediate and massive resource drain. Shells require huge amounts of calcium. Currently, pregnant humans sometimes suffer from calcium depletion. An egg-laying human would need superhuman levels of dietary calcium intake and specialized, highly efficient temporary calcium storage mechanisms, perhaps in specialized bone structures that dissolve and reform before and after each laying cycle. Now we face the biggest logistical challenge, the size of the human egg. A typical human baby weighs about 3.5 kilograms or 7.5 pounds at birth. If we shift to oviparity, the baby does not need to be that large at delivery. However, the egg must contain the baby plus all the necessary life support systems. Let us assume the hatchling emerges at 40% of its live birth weight, about 1.4 kilograms or 3 pounds. This hatchling must be suspended in amniotic fluid, cushioned by albumin, and nourished by a massive yolk sac that sustains it for the entire incubation period, which might range from 6 to 12 months depending on the rate of calcification. The resulting egg would be enormous. It would likely be elongated, resembling a massive oblong melon or a small tire, perhaps 18 to 20 inches long with a circumference of 30 to 40 inches. Imagine the delivery of a water balloon the size of a prize-winning pumpkin. The shell itself cannot be thin and leathery like a snake egg because it must support the weight and protect the rapidly developing skull. It would likely be semi-rigid, perhaps 3 to 5 millimeters thick, calcifying rapidly in the final few days before the laying event. The laying process would likely be traumatic and require medical assistance and preparation. Unlike the gradual muscular contractions of current human labor, the oviparous delivery would be an explosive event designed to expel the massive, rigid object quickly. Once the egg is successfully laid, the focus shifts entirely from internal gestation to external care and incubation. This is where society fundamentally changes. The concept of the maternity nest would become a universal architectural necessity. Standard king-sized beds are out. Homes would need specialized, temperature-controlled, cushioned chambers designed to safely hold and monitor the massive egg for months. Think about the implications for public infrastructure. Hospitals would require specialized high-tech incubators large enough for multiple human eggs, monitored by machines that track the embryo's vital signs through the shell. The maternity wing becomes the incubation ward. The concept of maternity leave would evolve into incubation leave. Unlike the internal burden of pregnancy, which falls solely on the mother, the responsibility for incubation can be shared equally. If the egg requires continuous warmth for a period, perhaps at the critical 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, both parents would take shifts monitoring the temperature and physical stability of the egg. This shared physical and emotional task could radically alter the dynamics of gender roles in parenting from day one. Paternity leave becomes as critical and demanding as maternity leave. Fathers are not just observers, they are essential incubators. Furthermore, consider the social and legal status of the egg. Is the egg a legal person immediately upon laying or only upon hatching? This is a massive ethical shift. If an egg is damaged or lost during the incubation period, is that legally equivalent to the loss of a child? The technology surrounding the shell would become highly sophisticated. We would develop non-invasive imaging techniques to monitor the baby's health inside the shell and specialized repair patches for hairline cracks in the calcium. Egg security would become paramount, especially in a world where eggs are potentially targeted or stolen. But the new oviparous reality introduces new, horrific medical risks. We mentioned the complexity of the shell gland and oviduct. What if the egg began calcifying outside this specialized structure, the abdominal cavity? Ectopic pregnancies are already life-threatening. Ectopic egg development would be a fatal disaster. If the shell-producing mechanism is triggered and the developing egg begins to calcify while attached to an organ like the liver or intestine, the rigid, rapidly growing calcium mass would puncture vital organs and cause catastrophic internal damage. Emergency procedures would need to be immediately developed to surgically remove the ectopic calcifying egg, often requiring doctors to crack the premature shell in the operating room to save the mother's life. If the shell formation process is flawed, a soft-shelled egg would be laid. While easier to deliver, it would be extremely vulnerable to collapse and damage, potentially requiring immediate transfer to a highly specialized artificial incubator unit capable of providing a supportive, hard shell environment externally. We traded the agony of the narrow pelvis for the agony of the massive egg delivery and the constant anxiety of external incubation. The human body is an incredible machine, honed over millions of years to achieve the most efficient form of reproduction given our constraints. Our current live birth system, painful though it is, ensures that the embryo is housed in a stable, self-regulating environment immune from external predators and temperature fluctuations. To switch to oviparity, we solve the problem of a large head meeting a narrow exit. But we introduced massive problems of resource depletion, traumatic delivery, and the intense, shared anxiety of monitoring a fragile life outside the womb for nearly a year. Humans laying eggs is a powerful thought experiment. It shows us that evolution is not about finding the perfect solution, but finding the most practical compromise. Our existence as viviparous creatures is a testament to the fact that 9 months of internal suffering and a perilous delivery were ultimately the lesser of two evils. We solved the great dilemma by bearing the pain. Perhaps that is the most human solution of all.